Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your sanctimoniously notorious RMB, here for this Robservations chat number. Oh, Gilbert's already barking at me. What do you want to say? What chat number it is? Well, it's Robservations live chat number 183. Robservations is, of course, the show about something. And apparently something is Gilbert barking. You know, Gilbert hasn't really barked on the show that much. Are you going to come on, Gilbert? Would you like to, before I start the show, do you expect a cookie? Come here. Want a cookie? Yeah, you. I know. Look at that. I got him trained well, people. Look at this. You get one more, but then you're done with cookies, okay? Good boy. That's a good boy. You get down now. Get down. Down, buddy. Over here. You can, like, there you go. Get down. Tallulah, come here. One. All right, there you go. Anyway, that's all the guest starring of the dogs you get for today if they don't start barking. Gilbert and Tallulah got their cookies just for you guys. Anyway, this is Robservations, a show about something. It's live chat number 183. My God, brought to you by me to you, the imagination connoisseurs of this, the Post-Geek Singularity community. And as you all know, these chats are brought to you by Lucky Tiger Men's grooming products for those men who want to look good and feel great. And, you know, as I've said, one of the girls absconded with my Lucky Tiger all over body wash that I love so much. I'm going to have to go buy some more. And if you do buy some more like I'm going to, if you go to their website at getluckytiger.com and you punch in PGS for Post-Geek Singularity, you get 20% off of your order. Well, as many of you know, many of you who followed me or listened to me talk online or followed me on social media, Twitter, various things, what have you, you know that today, my friends, is a momentous day, and it shows you the power that social media can have as a force for good in the world. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, as reported by Entertainment Weekly this morning, by actor Derek Lawrence, from Derek Lawrence, writer Derek Lawrence. Derek Lawrence reports that Hobbs and Shaw writer promises that justice for Han is coming. Now, I'm going to read this to you, and a lot of people are going to be saying, what? What is all this about? I'll explain it, but let me read this article. Despite Jason Statham's Deckard Shaw being fully positioned as a hero in Hobbs and Shaw, which opens this weekend, screenwriter Chris Morgan promises that the Fast and Furious franchise won't forget his original sin, killing our beloved Han. The third film in the franchise, The Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift, which, as those in the know say, just the drift, has retroactively become crucial to the series, and much of that is due to the introduction of Sun Kang, the actor, Sun Kang's Han Seoul, Seoul as in the city in Korea. Although the character died in the film, Han was such a favorite of the audience and the creative team that subsequent films were set prior to those events so that he could stick around. But the timeline finally caught up to Tokyo Drift at the end of Fast and Furious 6, as we once again saw Han struck by a random car during a chase. It was revealed that this was no accident. It was Shaw seeking revenge on behalf of his brother Owen, played by Luke Evans. Marking Statham's first appearance in the franchise, the scene set him up as the antagonist in Furious 7 before he was reluctantly forced to become part of the team in The Fate of the Furious, and eventually leading to his pairing with Dwayne Johnson in Hobbs and Shaw. The decision to make Shaw a member of the Fast family has led many fans to call for justice for Han. I was one of the first, let me just say, on Twitter. I was one of the first. And Morgan, the writer behind every Fast movie since Tokyo Drift, wants them to know it's coming. I love justice for Han, Morgan tells the EW, adding that the Han character is very important to him. Sun Kang is a great friend, and Han is a character that I adore. I would say the super arc for Deckard Shaw is going to be one of the most interesting, cool, rewarding character arcs in the franchise. Justice for Han is owed. It is something we have discussed for a very long time and want to give it the right due. I think the audience will be satisfied and should know it's coming. There's a line in Hobbs and Shaw that is right before the battle in Samoa, where Shaw says to his sister, There's things I've done that I have to make up amends for. There's things I've done that I have to make amends for. That line was specifically written and put in there just to let everyone know that he's talking about Han. It's on his mind. It tortures him, and he's going to get to it. Could Han Solo, yes, really, somehow still be alive and fittingly get his revenge in space? Time will tell. Okay. For those of you who don't know, first of all, there's one more thing I want to get off the top that has nothing to do with this, but I figured it kind of does in a way. So, as many people know, I'm a big Paul Verhoeven fan. Been a fan of Paul Verhoeven since I saw his Dutch movies. The Fourth Man, Soldier of Orange, Katie Tipple, Turkish Delight. I saw Business is Business later, but been a big fan of Paul Verhoeven. I first met him in 1985 at the Seattle Film Festival. I spoke to him for about an hour at the closing night festival party, where it basically was just him and I was just about to graduate from high school, or I must have just graduated since it was the end of the festival. So it was the beginning of June, middle of June. And we had a long conversation about, he was very upset with the rating system because his first English language movie starring Rutger Hauer, Flesh and Blood, was originally rated X by the MPAA, and he had to cut it down. And he did not understand how come we can show as much violent stuff as we want in movie theaters here in this country, but if you want to show sex, woo, everybody freaks out. He didn't get that at all. I was young and impressionable, and he was really the first film director, actually the second film director I actually had a really long conversation with. The first was actually Martin Brest, who I interviewed for my high school newspaper. Martin Brest, of course, directed Scent of a Woman. He directed Meet Joe Black. He also directed my beloved Beverly Hills Cop. I love Beverly Hills Cop, and he directed that. He was the first director I actually met and had a very long conversation with for my high school newspaper in his hotel room, which was amazing when he was on a press junket for Beverly Hills Cop. It was very exciting. So meeting Paul Verhoeven was a big deal in my life, so I've always been a fan of Paul Verhoeven. Some of his movies are better than others, but of course, Paul Verhoeven directed Showgirls, written by Joe Esterhaus, who wrote Basic Instinct. It was, he made Showgirls, I believe he made it right after Basic Instinct, if memory serves. He might have made it after Starship Troopers, but I think after Basic Instinct. And of course, Elizabeth Berkley from Saved by the Bell was in it. It was going to be her breakthrough role. Everyone thought the movie was going to be a big hit about showgirls in Vegas. What's not to love? What can you do? But Showgirls has gone on from being a notorious bomb that nobody understood why it was even made to being a beloved cult film. Now they're making a documentary about it, and a crowd-funded documentary, and the documentary is called Goddess, The Rise and Fall of Showgirls. Why am I telling you this? Well, the people that are making this documentary said, if anybody retweets our Kickstarter link, we will send you something in the mail. Well, I got that today. They made good. This is how crowdfunding is done. They sent me a postcard, Goddess, The Rise and Fall of Showgirls, but it came with the piece de resistance. Can you see this? Let me put this. Yeah, there you go. It's a sticker that says Versace. That's right. It says Versace because famously in the movie, the character of Nomi Malone, played by Elizabeth Berkley, does not understand how to pronounce Versace, and she calls it Versace. And any fans of the movie know that that is a crucial moment in cinema history. So to have it immortalized with a Versace sticker truly warms the cockles of my black heart. Well, that's not true. I don't have a black heart. And my heart's always warm, and that's part of the reason why you always watch me. But I am damn proud to have retweeted on social media about Goddess. Well, I have been tweeting literally for years, about Han Solo, where we discover, of course, at the end of Fast and the Furious 6, there's an end tag where you find out that what you thought was an accident in Tokyo Drift. First of all, anyone who's in the know, you don't call it the Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift. You just call it the Drift. Everyone knows what you're talking about. It's awesome. It's kind of like calling the Raid and the Raid 2 Barandal, just calling it the Rad and the Rad 2 even radder. People know, but I've been making the drift happen for years, and my friend Nikki Griffin was in the drift. I used to just like grab screen caps of her painting her toenails in the beginning. What can go wrong? I know a very pretty blonde woman who's very smart and a huge geek that just happened to be in the drift, which makes her that much cooler in my mind. So anyway, for whatever reason, I saw. I'm going to tell you my history with the Fast and Furious franchise. I liked Fast and Furious 1. You know, Rob Cohen directed it. I thought it was good. You know, I really enjoyed it. It was certainly a asphalt remake of Point Break. I had no illusions of that. I didn't see Too Fast, Too Furious right away. I went and saw The Drift. I went and saw The Drift actually with Bryan Singer at the Grove here in LA. And I loved The Drift. I love Japan. I've always wanted to go to Japan. I don't know why I've never been to Japan. I've wanted to go to Japan my whole life. And in the movie The Drift, see, I didn't necessarily have a connection to the characters. I like Fast and Furious. So they didn't really have it. It was all new characters really up until the very end. So Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift was new characters. And we actually got to go to Japan. And one of our characters winds up getting involved in a young Yakuza, a Yakuza boss's son or grandson who's playing Yakuza boss in Tokyo. But you meet the character of Han Solo, and that's Seoul like the city. And Han Solo is played by the Sun Kang, who in my mind was one of the coolest dudes ever. Handsome dude, best hair, and in Tokyo Drift, he's set himself up. He's kind of like, he's a supplier. He's a low-level criminal himself. He's got the best cars. He's got the hottest babes, the greatest motorcycles. He's got the greatest pad, and he knows everything. He's kind of like the Obi-Wan Kenobi of the drift world in Japan. And for whatever reason, I fell in love with that guy's character. I just loved Han. I wanted to meet Han. I kind of wanted to be Han. Loved Han. But at the end of Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift, Han is killed. He dies in an accident. Now, what's really interesting about this character is this character was actually introduced in an entirely different movie that has nothing to do with the Fast and the Furious franchise. And it was Justin Lin's, it's one of his first, I don't know if it was his first movie, but it was called Better Luck Tomorrow. And yes, and Better Luck Tomorrow came out in 2002, and it first introduced the character of Han, played by Sun Kang. Now, I don't know if this is a first in American cinema. So the writers, Justin Lin was a writer on Better Luck Tomorrow, one of three, and he directed the film. And what he did was he took a character he created for his movie, Better Luck Tomorrow, and brought that character, wrote him in to Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift, brought him in, and crazy. And how cool is that? And apparently Han had run from somewhere, and he had to come to Japan to sort of hide. Han is hiding out, and then he dies at the end of Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift. Well, in an interesting turn of events, Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift did not make that much money, but people like the film. I adore the movie, and I think the true Fast and the Furious connoisseurs love the film. And as a result of loving Tokyo Drift, I went back and watched Too Fast, Too Furious, directed by John Singleton, which I actually kind of liked, where other characters were later introduced in that film. And then Justin Lin was hired to direct Fast and the Furious, let's just call it 4. And in this movie, Han Solo's character, Sun Kang, comes back. He comes back. He's in. So Justin Lin directed Fast 4. Well, it's not called Fast 4. Fast and Furious. Then he directed Fast 5, which is the Citizen Kane of the Fast and the Furious franchise. And then, of course, the 6th Fast and Furious movie. Now, not only did Justin Lin bring Han over from a different film entirely and put him into the Fast and Furious franchise, everyone loved Han so much that he made the decision that Fast and the Furious 4, 5, and 6 would be prequels to Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift. Prequels. So Fast and the Furious 4, 5, and 6 are prequels to Fast and the Furious or Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift, but Fast and Furious 3, if you're going to number them, which is also insane, but crazy cool. Somehow he was able to do that. So Sun Kang comes back, and eventually what's amazing, and nobody talks about this, they talk about representation in movies. Sun Kang eventually hooks up with Gal Gadot's character, Giselle. I mean, so you've got the hot Asian dude, one of the coolest Asian characters in modern American cinema, maybe in cinema ever, Han Solo, hooks up with Gal Gadot. I mean, come on. You want representation, people? Everyone thinks Shang-Chi and Crazy Rich Asians are changing the perception of Asian characters for American audiences. No way, man. Han Solo was the man. He was just the coolest dude ever, and he winds up with Wonder Woman. In case you didn't think that he could have been cool enough. No. Then what happens? In Fast and Furious 6, we find out, we see a replay at the end of the movie of Han's death from Tokyo Drift, and we find out that Jason Statham, who plays Deckard Shaw, the brother of Owen Shaw, played by Luke Evans, the antagonist of Fast and Furious 6, actually is Han dies because he takes revenge on Han and kills Han. Deckard Shaw kills Han. And then Fast and Furious 7 is all about they're going after Deckard Shaw. And eventually, at the end of 7, at the beginning of 8, Deckard Shaw, the man who killed Han Solo, becomes part of the family. And now Deckard Shaw has a spinoff, Hobbs and Shaw. And in my mind, this is one of the most grievous miscarriages of fictional justice ever perpetrated on cinema-going audiences across the universe. The man who killed Han, one of the coolest guys to ever exist in a movie, is somehow, not only is he allowed to go free, he begins working with our crew. He becomes part of Vin Diesel's extended family, and now he gets his own spinoff movie. There was no Han and Giselle spinoff movie, but there damn well should be. So years ago, I would tweet. I would always tweet to when Justin Lin was on Twitter as Trailing Johnson, and I would tweet to Sun Kang directly. I never got an answer from either one of them, but I was always tweeting justice for Han. It's been a cause of mine for years on the internet. I don't know if you can go back and you can look at all my tweets. I don't know who was the first person to ever tweet. I couldn't have been the first person, justice for Han, but I think I was the most vigorous for a number of years back. I was the man that wanted to see Han avenged. I felt that Jason Statham's addition to the Fast and Furious franchise was terrifyingly awful. Why they made this choice, why they would let down one of the coolest characters in the world ever, bothered me. Now, of course, I say this all with tongue firmly in cheek. I am not crazy. I am not, this is not, I'm not losing my grip on reality, people. Now, what I've said about Sun Kang, what I've said about the character of Han, all absolutely true, and I have great love and affection for him. However, I do it because it's fun and amusing and it entertains people. And it entertains, most importantly, myself. But that doesn't mean I'm sitting at home paging through 8x10s of Sun Kang or stalking his restaurant in Brentwood. I don't do those things. But I'm not. I promise. I just think it's fun. And as a longtime fan of things, why can't we do this? Why can't we have such fun with these things? If you watch the John Campea show this morning, when I went off on a rant about it, you can see pretty much how I feel about these things. Now, I'll tell you a funny story. This is a true story. This is a true story about so as many people know, because I talk about it all the time, I worked on the Blu-ray special features for both Star Trek: The Next Generation and Enterprise. And when we were done with Enterprise, we took out, hang on, I'm just looking up something I want to get. I'm looking up something just to be clear on the dates. But I want to say, like in 2014, when we finished Enterprise, we took out a number of the cast members for dinner at the Soho House here in Los Angeles as an appreciation because they really weren't getting paid. to participate in our documentaries and all that. So we took him out to a really nice dinner. And John Billingsley, who played Dr. Phlox, I ended up in a discussion, probably fueled with a little bit of Jameson. I went off on the Fast and the Furious franchise, and I told John Billingsley how much I love this franchise. I went on and on and on, and he was incredulous. He couldn't believe it. Like, he was under the impression that I had a very sophisticated palate when it came to movies and how much I loved great cinema. So why he just couldn't fathom, why would I be such a fan of the Fast and the Furious films? And, you know, John Billingsley is actually a terrific actor, has a keen mind, very smart man. And I said to him, I go, you know, I don't think the Fast and the Furious films are necessarily great cinema. I do think Fast 5 is legitimately one of the great modern classics. I would call it a B movie. And I think we all know what that means. It's not an A-list movie, but I grew up loving B movies, as I think we all did. Now, some of my favorite directors, I consider, or I think some people would consider, B movie directors. Like John Carpenter is one of my favorite directors. And John Carpenter has definitely made what I would consider to be A-list movies. Certainly Starman is an A-list movie. I think a case could be made that The Thing is an A-list movie, maybe even Memoirs of an Invisible Man. But, you know, to me, genre cinema, B movies, movies that are never going to be A-list, overtly science fiction, fantasy, horror, but not with big budgets, mid-range or lower budget films. Escape from New York, perfect B movie to me. The Terminator, perfect B movie, made by A-list talents, but still B movies. These are not movies that are going to be recognized as great cinema, even though they are great cinema. But and maybe some people do, maybe, but I think everybody catches my drift when I say, like when New Line puts out a movie like Jack Shoulder's The Hidden, I was first in line, man. I ate it up. I grew up on a steady diet of Hammer horror movies, which is why I love like Vampire Circus. I love The Abominable Dr. Phibes and Phibes Rises Again, Theater of Blood. I mean, Vincent Price, for as much as I love him as an actor, I don't think people would generally consider him to be an A-list actor. He sort of was relegated to genre films. Now, I love genre movies. I always have. But the Fast and the Furious movies are a manifestation of my love of genre cinema. Now, they are studio movies, and they have big budgets. I don't think anybody would say, okay, the Fast and the Furious franchise, you know, are the Fast and Furious franchise really B movies with those big budgets? Well, what's happened to all of, I would say this, Terminator 1 cost like $4.5 million, right? Definitely a B movie. One of the greatest B movies ever made. Terminator 2 cost $100 million a mere, 7 years later? $100 million. Arnold Schwarzenegger went from being a B-list, if you want to even call him B-list, to an A-list movie star in that period of time. And Terminator 2 was the most, well, at the time, it was the first $100 million movie. So we have lived in a world, I've watched us live in a world where the B movie became the A movie. And now when we get studio action pictures, they're basically B movies dressed up with A budgets. And it's sort of a strange world that we live in. Now, I'm not saying a lot of B movies are pretty god-awful. They're not so good. You know, there's a lot of Canon movies, Canon Studios, when they were making movies in the 80s. You think about movies like American Ninja with Michael Dudikoff and Steve James. I loved American Ninja. I don't think many people would mistake American Ninja for a great movie. I loved it, though. I mean, it had elements in it. And the thing is, there's craftsmanship and there's craftsmanship. There are sometimes not very good B movies. The spectrum of how good a B movie is enormous. And there are B movies I can't really watch at all because they're just terrible. And a lot of them were made by Canon. But there are a lot of B directors, James Glickenhaus James Glickenhaus, to my mind, is a master B movie director. He directed, of course, Robert Ginty in The Exterminator. He directed Ken Wall and The Soldier. He directed Christopher Walken and McBain, which is pretty insane. He made a movie called Shakedown with Peter Weller. Huge fan of James Glickenhaus. And what happened to James Glickenhaus? He left the business and became a broker on Wall Street and made millions of dollars. Probably a smart move. Because, and also I've watched in my lifetime as B movies went from gracing our multiplexes. You could go see Delta Force. You know, you could go see Invasion USA in a movie theater. Escape from New York in a movie theater. You know, all these movies, what were B movies, like Phantasm, one of my favorite horror movies of all time. Definitely a B movie. Open in a theater. You used to be able to grow up and you could see all of these movies. They had the same, they would play right next door in a multiplex next to an A-list studio picture. The point was these B movies were seen they were seen in movie theaters. I loved them. And I grew up loving them. Now, does that mean they're my favorite movies of all time? Are you going to take away my love of All About Eve or All That Jazz or Almost Famous? No. Lawrence of Arabia, talk about an A-list movie. Godfather? No. I think my tastes run pretty highbrow. But I do love genre cinema. Asian martial arts and fantasy films. Bring it on. Italian Franco co-productions like Wild Wild Planet. Bring it on. If you haven't seen Wild Wild Planet, you're doing yourselves a great disservice. Run on over to Warner Archive and buy the DVD. I tell you to buy the Blu-ray, but they haven't made one, unfortunately. And I think B cinema was always with us since the dawn of cinema. You know, and it's I love it. I love great B movies. Always have. Well, the Fast and Furious franchise to me has turned into a wacky, one of the great B franchises of all time that just happens to gross $1.5 billion in the case of Furious 7. These movies have become unbelievably ridiculous. They went from being an homage to the car culture films of the 50s, as the original Fast and Furious was, to being one of the great B-movie franchises of all time. I mean, if you have any illusions that the Fast and the Furious franchise isn't completely ridiculous, watch Fate of the Furious, which is absolutely inane. I think the greatest Fast and Furious movie by far is Fast 5, where they have this extended team. They've got everybody pulling a heist. Joaquin de Almeida's in it. I mean, come on. That guy should be in every movie. I first fell in love with him in Clear and Present Danger when he played this assassin for a drug lord, a cartel leader. I mean, the fact that he's in Fast 5, Fast 5 is just, come on. You cannot watch Fast 5 without a smile on your face. It's that good. I mean, if Greg Tolan shot it, it might have been better. But since he didn't, it's just masterful. Fast and Furious 6, everyone talks about the plane scene, the runway that goes on forever. Diminished the film in my eyes, but there's something about Fast 5 that is perfect from beginning to end. I don't explain it. I don't understand it. I just let it wash over me. But a lot of people just, you know, they'll take my opinion down a peg or two because of my love of the Fast and Furious franchise. I think you're wrong. I think you don't understand great cinema, and I don't think you're there to have fun. I think you're there to go along with the bandwagon and do what everyone else thinks. You should open your mind and watch the Fast and Furious franchise. Look, perhaps not. Perhaps I'm tilting at windmills. That I can't explain it. I just love B movies. I love genre cinema. Hell, you know, in my Shogun Assassin. If you haven't seen Shogun Assassin, if you don't know what Shogun Assassin is, don't sit there and give me the whole, oh, you have to watch the original Lone Wolf and Cub movies. I've seen them. But Shogun Assassin I saw first. Shogun Assassin might be, in my mind, the actual Citizen Kane of B movies for a number of reasons. But it's also problematic for a number of reasons as well. But you know what? If you're woke to B cinema, if you're woke to it, if you truly understand it, you understand its value, you are woke to B cinema. And if you aren't woke to B cinema, you got to get woke to B cinema. And you should start by watching Shogun Assassin, that Criterion did include in their box set of the Lone Wolf and Cub movies. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just go look up the trailer for Shogun Assassin. I understand when you start delving into it, if you don't know what it is, it's going to be strange because this is just an aside. So there's a very famous Japanese manga, which is one of my favorite mangas of all time, called Lone Wolf and Cub. It is about a masterless samurai, Ogami Ito, and his son Daigoro. And I don't know if that's Japanese accent or what, but that's who they are. They travel the highways and byways of the land, righting wrongs, and hopefully one day killing the shogun responsible for the death of Ogami Ito's wife and his son Daigoro's mother. And what they did was, in America, this is genius. These producers, these two guys, basically, they bought the rights to the first two Lone Wolf and Cub films. They recut them, turned them into one movie, dubbed them. Yes, Shogun Assassin is dubbed in English, and kind of changed the story around. Sandra Bernhard does multiple female voices in the movie. It is the pinnacle. It is peak B movie. It is so great. If you haven't seen Shogun Assassin, it's got a synth disco score that has to be heard to be believed. Everything about Shogun Assassin is peak B movie. But if you can hang with Shogun Assassin, if you're a woke B movie connoisseur, and I know all of you who are imagination connoisseurs are, if you can handle Shogun Assassin, you can handle anything. If you enjoy Shogun Assassin, I think you will find things to like about the Fast and the Furious franchise. So this idea that Sun Kang will ever, they violated the B movie code by turning Jason Statham into like this good guy. And I understand he's a box office draw. I know why they did it. But the thing is, you don't kill a character like Han and get away with it. And it's been something that's been weighing on my conscience for a long time. I think I started tweeting about it, 2012 or something, Justice for Han. As I said, I used to tweet to Sun Kang and to Justin Lin. I never got a response, but I was very vocal about it. I love B movies. And when I tell you, like, I love movies like Vampire Circus, which is my favorite Hammer movie, you know, the Karnstein trilogy, Witchfinder General, or Devil Rides Out, or, you know, whatever. I love Jean Rollins' lesbian vampire movies. Some people would say they are high art. I love them. My favorite is not actually a vampire movie. It's a zombie movie, The Living Dead Girl. But if you haven't seen one of Jean Rollins' beautiful lyrical lesbian vampire movies, might I suggest you sample them. Fascination, Lips of Blood. I'm telling you, these are movies that need to be seen. And I've been dealing with prejudice against B movies my whole life, but I think it's really important that all of you get woke to beef cinema and open your minds and understand the joys that can be had. But you know what? As an adult, I say that because I've been enjoying these movies since I was a little kid. I can be wrong about this. Maybe nobody wants me to talk about B movies. I don't know. Maybe people say, Rob, don't be such a trash meister. None of these movies are valuable. Au contraire, they're all valuable. They're all amazing to watch. I want everybody to see the great B movies of the world. Maybe I will. There's too many to name, of course. There's a lot more B movies in the world than A-list movies in the world. So I just thought it was important that I bring it up. I am deliriously excited. My hashtag Justice for Han. I want to say that I started it. I might not have started it. I can't prove it. I guess you could go back to Twitter and prove it. I went back and looked. I didn't even see my old tweets about Justice for Han, but maybe they all got erased. I don't know. And I don't know if I hope I didn't erase all my old tweets. I don't know how far back my tweets go. That would bum me out. What a bummer. I might have done it once in a drunken, worrisome state about being Me Too'd by some crazy old tweets I put out, probably about my love of Sun Kang, but you never know. JB Bonifacio is here, and JB says, in an ideal world, it would be called Hobbs and Han. No, dude, why would it be called Hobbs and Han? Why should Hobbs come before Han? It should be Han and Hobbs. Really, it should be called Han and Giselle. That's what I want to see. A prequel movie where they go across like heart to heart. They go across Europe, solve crimes, and spend lots of money. Amazing. Factual opinion says, what I don't like in TNG. You didn't say like, but you said what I would assume like. What I don't like in TNG, Troy, Wesley, Pulaski, and Ferengis. Yeah, the Ferengis in TNG, especially in the last outpost, the first TNG experience, the first time the Ferengis appear. Yeesh. You know, it's interesting. The Ferengis were originally conceived to be what they called the Yankee traders of space, and their portrayal was not good. It's interesting. Armin Shimmerman, who later went on to play Quark, is one of the first Ferengi you see in the series. He didn't really get to be flesh out what Ferengis could be until Deep Space Nine. I don't think the Ferengis were done any favors until Deep Space Nine, when they really were fully developed and they became great Star Trek characters. Emmanuel Ericart says Shaw stopped a dangerous street racer who puts everyone, the lives of everyone on the street, in danger. What if on the next turn he ran over an old lady? Hashtag Hero Shaw. Emmanuel Ericart, you are being contrarian just to be contrarian. Street racing is a fact of life. If you want to live on the streets, you want to walk on the sidewalks, you got to be careful of street racers. Just like if you go on an African safari, don't stick your head out of the car, do you? So, and that didn't happen, by the way. No one got hurt except Han, killed by Deckard Shaw, and he has yet to be avenged. Why is that? Now they're talking about it. Chris Morgan is talking about justice for Han. Anthony Gonzalez says, I prefer Nick Cage's Gone in 60 Seconds to The Fast and the Furious. Listen, Anthony, we're not here to compare and contrast. This is my show. Gone in 60 Seconds is fine. But you know what? It's no Fast Five. Fast Five, one of the greatest B movies ever made with an A-list budget. You got to watch it. Fast Five is far superior to Gone in 60 Seconds. And remember, I am not one of these people that believes in the objectivity of or the subjectivity of art. I'm all about the objective truth of the greatness of movies like Fast Five, especially to be better than Gone in 60 Seconds. Although Gone in 60 Seconds, another movie that used to be a B movie, back in the 70s, that was turned into an A-list movie, but still a B movie at its core. So, you know what? I will say this. The fact that you stuck up for Gone in 60 Seconds makes you a true connoisseur. And I want to thank you for doing that, because you are correct. Worth talking about. John Suntress is here from the Word Balloon podcast. John says, B movies were in all genres. Andy Hardy, Sherlock Holmes, Charlie Chan. Absolutely, man. Most movies are B movies, really. Genre cinema, B movies. It's amazing. So, what do you think about B movies, Gilbert? I think if I ever made a B movie about a dog, Gilbert would be the star. He would kick ass. I'd strap him with machine guns and stuff, and he would terrorize. He'd be like the old B movie, The Doberman Gang, but it would be better. He'd use heavy artillery. Why are you barking at me? He doesn't like it when I'm talking on this show. Culture Inject says, the Burnettwork, HBO, The Nevers, and Deadline just announced the cast for Joss Whedon's HBO series, The Nevers, and it's amazing. Well, I didn't know that, but because of the wonders of technology, I can go over and see who they are. The Nevers. Let's see. I'm coming down here. Circe. They're doing a show called Circe. Fast Color series adaptation. Hang on. Let me just punch in The Nevers. So I don't have to look it up. So let's see who's in the show. The Nevers. Cast for Joss Whedon's show includes, Olivia Williams. That's good. James Norton, Tom Riley, Laura Donnelly. Supernatural Victorian era series. Well, that sounds good. Wow. Yeah. So we got Olivia Williams, James Norton, Tom Riley, Ann Skelly, Ben Chaplin, Pip Torrens, Zachary Momoa, and Amy Manson. Well, there's a lot of great people from different shows. Oh, Nick Frost will be in the show as well. I love anything that Nick Frost is in. Dennis O'Hare is going to be there. Oh, I love Dennis O'Hare. This is amazing. And longtime collaborators Jane Espenson and Doug Petrie will serve as writers on the show. I mean, this sounds great. I'm in. So what a fantastic lineup. And, of course, if we see a reunion of Buffy characters, Buffy and Angel, writers, producers, it could sure be great. I'm into it. That's really good. Factual Opinion says, have you seen all the Robot Chicken Star Trek sketches? I don't know if I've seen them all. I've seen many of them. They're great. I'm a huge fan of Robot Chicken, as you might imagine, with their action figures and what they do. I really like Robot Chicken a lot. So yeah, I don't know if I've seen them all. Maybe I'm sure there's a compilation of them somewhere where I can go watch them. You know what I also used to watch? Was it what was that channel? They did these, I don't know what channel was it for. They did these Star Trek promos like Robot Chicken, but they weren't Robot Chicken, with all the cast. And like one of them, you go to Spock's house and he's like, yo, come into my house. Look at how I be prospering. It's the Spock Casa. And I don't know who made those promos, but they're some of my favorite Star Trek things ever. Scotty bringing the power. You can look those up online, I'm sure. They're great. Emmanuel Ericart says, I love how the Fast and the Furious and the Mission Impossible franchises evolved. Yeah, you know, what's really interesting is I think the first two Mission Impossible movies were, I like part two because John Woo directed. A lot of people don't. And part one, Brian De Palma's version, a little nebulous. Of course, J.J. Abrams directed part three. But I think by the time you get to 4, Ghost Protocol, when Brad Bird made his feature directorial debut in live action, the film, really cool. And then, of course, Rogue Nation and Fallout, I think, are terrific. And that's a franchise that's been around for a long time. Like the Fast and Furious franchise, there's a lot of similarities there. I mean, I don't necessarily, to me, I think Fast 5 was the pinnacle of that franchise, while Fast 6, Fast Furious 7, and the Fate of the Furious have been fun to watch. They haven't been as satisfying. I mean, if it makes sense, I don't think they have as much verisimilitude as 5 does. Fast 5, to me, my favorite Fast and Furious movies are Fast 5 and Tokyo Drift. I know a lot of people are like, what? I love The Drift. I know it's a different movie. I know Vin Diesel isn't in it till the end. Paul Walker isn't in it at all. But I really enjoy the film. And I like the whole fish out of water story. I like going to Japan. I like meeting all those people. I like the whole car culture. And I especially love the character of Han. Love the character of Han. And Han, of course, that was his movie. He's never been better. There was too many characters. Really, Tokyo Drift was Han's movie. I know he's a supporting character, but it was really Han's film. I loved him for it. He never got big enough parts after that in the Fast and the Furious movies because it was too big of the ensemble was too big, and he clearly, obviously, wasn't the star. But I just love the fact that he wound up with Giselle in the end. So yes, I did like how the Fast and the Furious franchises evolved. I thought it was great, and those movies are just fun. Now, even I will admit, Fate of the Furious is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. They chase torpedoes over ice. There's submarines. It's now James Bond. It's crazy. I still watch it as a B movie goes. But you know, here's the funny thing to me about B movies. You can push it too far. Like I told people, I think even on this show, that the Hobbs and Shaw trailer had no verisimilitude. You went too far. Even in B movies, the best B movies keep verisimilitude. They keep it grounded. If it gets too goofy, it's too much like a cartoon, I tune out. And that's a really, I think the best B movies are kick-ass because they have verisimilitude in them. I do not like B movies that push the envelope of reality to the point of disbelief. I don't like them anymore. I like B movies that have great action scenes, great fight scenes, things that I can believe in. And car chases that I believe in, if that makes any sense. It's very, very important that B movies, more so than even A movies, B movies must have verisimilitude to work. And look, a lot of you are going to throw back at me and go, well, you know, the Terminator has some rickety effects. Even when it first came out, there's some puppetry effects, shots of Arnold's head, the Terminator's head, that are clearly a Stan Winston puppet. They're not great. So what does that do to your verisimilitude? Well, I'll tell you what it does. I overlook it. When I see a subpar special effect in a B movie, if the intent of the effect and if the actual execution is competent, and there's a couple in Terminator that are, you know, let's face it, sketchy. but I'll go with the intent. Like, I'm able to overlook a bad special effect. Like, if you go back and you watch Wild Wild Planet and they're like, this is the future, and you see this planetary landscape and rockets are taking off, and clearly there's like a match inside the rocket and the flames kind of going up like this because it's not turned upside down to get the flame. Yeah, I don't care. I love watching science fiction movies from the mid-'60s, especially if they're Italian or Franco co-productions like Wild Wild Planet is. I'm telling you, people, do yourself a favor, look up the trailer, the 3-minute trailer for Wild Wild Planet on YouTube, and tell me you don't want to see that movie. But to me, I grew up with that, delighted by it. I'll overlook a bad special effect if the intent is there. Like, I know that in Jason and the Argonauts, which I would consider to be, well, it's a B movie too. Jason and the Argonauts, all of Ray Harryhausen's movies are B movies. I'm sorry to say, they really are. But I understand, even when I was a kid, I got that the skeleton battle at the end of Jason and the Argonauts was stop motion. I got it. I understood it, but it was kick ass. So you overlook that and you revel in the joy of Harryhausen's effects, because it's great. And I can enjoy things like, I don't like Ed Wood crap. I don't like stuff that's bad. I don't like stuff that's campy. If somebody shows that they do have directing chops, but they sometimes descend into either too low budget filmmaking or filmmaking that isn't competent, then I tune out. But, you know, when you see a virtuoso B-movie performance like Sam Raimi's original Evil Dead, now that was some great shit right there. You know, and then you get into, to be honest, if you get into levels of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, definitely Tiffany A-list B-movie. Absolutely. One of the great B-movies of all time. Dawn of the Dead, right up there. Dawn of the Dead, Romero's Dawn of the Dead, one of the great B-movies of all time, if not the greatest. Obviously, I love this movie. It's one of my favorite movies. I have a fetishistic attachment to owning every Dawn of the Dead copy I can on optical disc. I'm waiting for that Sight and Sound, or the new version that's coming from the UK. Second Sight from the UK. They're doing Dawn of the Dead. I can't wait. They finally got access to the proper negative elements. Willow Yang is asking me, Spike or Angel? You know what? If you're asking me who I'd rather sleep with, Spike. You know Spike would bring it on home for you. Spike would make you his bitch, turn you out. Angel's just too weepy. But, if you're just talking about a character, like a character to follow, again, Spike. I liked Spike. Always liked Spike. He's a tragic character and a lot more fun to be around, I think. But that's always a good question. I think Spike or Angel is a great litmus test. That's kind of like Han and Luke. I guess saying, if I said Angel, that would be like picking Luke over Han Solo. JB Bonifacio says the shark moment has to be Black Superman. JB is, of course, referring to Idris Elba in the Hobbs and Shaw film in the trailer when he says, I'm the Black Superman. First of all, again, you're right. Now, here's the thing. It depends. The jury is going to be still out until I actually see the movie. But a true great B-movie villain would not call himself the Black Superman unless he's Rudy Ray Moore and you're watching Dolomite, in which case it fits right in. Or the Human Tornado. You know, he can get away with saying things like, I have a dong as big as King Kong because I am the Human Tornado. Rudy Ray Moore can get away with that, but Idris Elba in the Fast and the Furious franchise. See, to me, what I hope doesn't happen is that it's when somebody starts, when they set out, here, go with me on this. I told you I don't like campy movies. The Rocky Horror Picture Show did not start out to be a cult classic. It started out to be whatever it was, which is an adaptation of the musical, the stage musical. And audiences made it a cult classic later. You should never set out to make a campy movie or a cult classic, because that's not for you to say. You know, everyone talks about how Showgirls is now a camp classic. Well, at the time, they didn't think they were making one. It became one. And I think that the Hobbs and Shaw trailer at least the trailer, I haven't seen the movie, but the trailer to me looked like what people now think of the Fast and the Furious franchise collectively in the public consciousness. They don't take the movie seriously. They think they're a joke. So what they've done, the filmmakers, I guess, said, well, let's embrace that joke. When you put Jason Statham and Dwayne Johnson in a movie, it's inherently a joke, right? Well, then you've lost. And if that's what's happened to this movie, and that's why they're not showing it to people, somebody made an egregious error and didn't understand what you want is a kick-ass movie. You don't want to not believe it. The more kick-ass it is, the more badass it is. I mean, why do you think people love Die Hard so much? Because you have the joy of a B movie. You've got B movie villains that are great B movie villains, but you've got John McTiernan, who later went on to become an A-list director if he wasn't made an A-list director by Die Hard. But there's an A-list sensibility throughout Die Hard. No one thinks they're slumming. Die Hard is a film. You got Jan de Bont shooting it, John McTiernan directing, Bruce Willis giving it his all. You've got Alan Rickman as Hans Gruber, Bonnie Bedelia as, of course, Mrs. McClane. And everybody in that movie is giving it 100%. And it is a B movie through and through, but it is one of the greatest B movies ever made. But it's, made within the Hollywood system, and it's pretty A-list. But that's where it shifted over. B movies really started to shift in the 80s, and Die Hard is a perfect example. If not, it's an A-list action thriller, and it's one of the greatest B movies ever made because nobody thinks they're slumming, and everybody's has total conviction. And what I can't stand is, and what I saw in the Hobbs and Shaw trailer is that conviction wasn't there. It was all thrown out the window. You have to make people believe. If you don't give them belief, they're not going to buy into it. You want people to buy into your reality. And the Hobbs and Shaw trailer did not make me believe. I understand in Fast 5 that two cars probably cannot pull a bank vault down the street. It'd be too heavy. That's the big ask they make in that film. But I believe. They made me believe. So, yes. That you might be right about that, JB, but I haven't seen Hobbs and Shaw yet, so I don't know. I'm willing to keep an open mind. Matthew Maneri says, quick pitch. Shatner and Collins as freedom fighters in Nazi-run America. Shatner and Stephen Collins from Star Trek The Motion Picture, that could be. But you know what? I mean, Shatner's pushing 90. I don't know if I'd believe that. And I don't know if Nazis could ever take over America, but you know what? Could have been a great B movie in the 80s, directed by Sam Furstenberg and released by Cannon Films. I mean, they did something like that with Invasion USA. But yeah, that again could be the basis of a great B movie. Absolutely. I mean, what's really interesting is we got a movie coming out they've been trying to make for 20 years, Ong Lee's new film, Gemini Man, which is a film that is starring, of course, Will Smith, and he's fighting his younger clone, and which is a complete CG creation. They didn't use de-aging technology on him. It's an actual CG character. They had an actor there performing, but they mapped on Will Smith's face from Independence Day and Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. That's how come they made it look that way. If you haven't watched the Gemini Man trailer, check it out. If that movie isn't a B movie, I don't know what is with an A-list budget. So yeah, it's the good stuff, man. And I am a shameless devotee of great B movies. And I'm not, again, I think it's a bummer how we've sort of become snobbish in our movie going, because we somehow don't see B movies as being valuable, even though I think 3/4 of my movie collection are B movies. But anyway, so all of my whole thing about Justice for Han, it's just fun. I enjoy it. It makes me laugh. I do like the Fast and Furious movies. They're a lot of fun. I love Fast 5. I just like the characters as far as B movies go. But don't think that I will watch any Fast and Furious movie. I was not a big fan of Fast and Furious 8. They started doing things that I'm like, come on, man. You gotta keep me believing. I don't want to stop believing, like Journey said. The Fate of the Furious, believe it or not, and Furious 7 to a certain extent. I mean, James Wan, he skates the line of verisimilitude. His horror movies are great, but when he does things like Furious 7, when cars are jumping from one building to the next, you're pushing it, buddy. You're pushing it. And without Furious 7, I don't think we would have had the ridiculousness of Fate of the Furious. The climax of that movie is just, come on. It just gets too much. Now they're talking about putting the Fast and Furious franchise in space, like Moonraker. No. Don't do that. Don't go into space. Don't forget your roots. It's important. But anyway, let's see. Joan Collins. Matthew Maneri says Joan Collins and Shatner as freedom fighters in Nazi-run America. I would watch the hell out of that show. Even now, they could be like, older people. I love that, Matthew Maneri. Okay, I'll take that. Joan Collins and Shatner fighting Nazis in America. It would have been cool to see them fighting Nazis in 1930s America. Like there's a sneak attack. The Nazis invade an unsuspecting America, and only Captain Kirk and Edith Keeler can prevent the further infiltration of the country. That would be kind of cool. Like, I'd be into that. I think that'd be a lot of fun. I definitely would enjoy seeing something like that. I think other people would too. I mean, I don't know. Maybe people would not, but I certainly would. I think that would be great. But I mean, what do you guys think? As far as B movies are concerned, what are some of your favorite B movies? And do you think I'm off base with my assessment of B cinema and how B cinema has sort of become A cinema, or it's replaced? It's funny because a lot of these things aren't being seen anymore. What do you guys think? And you girls and you gentle people and you beings of kindness and all of you people out there, I'd love to know what do you think of as B cinema? What are some of your guilty pleasures? Are there movies that you don't ever want to admit to people that you love, but you do, such as my beloved Tough Turf, which, again, Kino Lorber just put out on Blu-ray, which I'm very happy about. Do you guys have favorites? Do you think of Terminator 2 and Die Hard as just very expensive B movies? Well, Terminator 2 is much more expensive than Die Hard. But, I mean, when you have 65 millimeter effects done by Boss Studios for a movie like Die Hard, is it a B movie anymore? Do you think of it that way? I mean, it's tough. It's hard, but I think everybody understands where I'm coming from. At least I hope they do, because maybe they haven't. I don't know. I don't know what you guys think. But I don't think anybody can love comics and science fiction and fantasy and horror movies and not love B cinema. But that could be just me. So anyway, I don't know. I don't have any letters today because the Honorable Mike Bodden is traveling in Washington, D.C. He's speaking about flooding on the Mississippi in Iowa. And so I don't have letters today, but I'm going to be, don't let that stop you from writing. So I think I'm going to bring this chat to a close. It's been an hour. I'm going to end this one quick. It's not going to be a long one. I just want to talk about Fate of the Furious, the Fast and the Furious franchise, and Sun Kang and Justice for Han, because I thought it would be funny. And I encourage everyone to go watch this morning's John Campea show, because I was pretty proud of my rant. Just saying. And please, tell me in the comments section for this if you like B movies. What are your favorite B movies? Maybe we'll have just my favorite B movies chat one day if I ever get back to my movie lists. I think that might be a good one to have. But I'm going to end this chat now. Like Robert Duvall said in Apocalypse Now, someday this war is going to end. And it's going to end. This chat's going to end. And I'm going to end this chat after an hour. I know it's a quick one, but I got stuff to do. I want to say thank you for being here. If you like these chats, please hit like, subscribe, hit the little bell so you can be updated. I want to thank my moderators, Mike, Detective Jim, Terry, and Greg, for being such great moderators. And I was getting more people contacting me more about how we're becoming less of a safe space for all different points of view, and I don't want that to happen. We've got to make sure that this is all inclusive, because we are, after all imagination connoisseurs, members of the Post-Geek Singularity community. And I want to say thanks to Lucky Tiger for bringing you these chats. Lucky Tiger men's grooming products for those men who want to look good and feel great. Go to their website at getluckytiger.com if you want to get their stuff, which I highly recommend. Use PGS when you check out for Post-Geek Singularity, and you will get 20% off your order. And with that, I'm going to bring this Robservations live chat number 183 to an end, to a conclusion, because I can. And I want to thank everybody for the ongoing support of the channel and for just being generally awesome. I don't know if you're all going to go see Hobbs and Shaw. I'm going to see it. I'm actually going to review it. I don't usually do movie reviews, but I'm very curious about Hobbs and Shaw. And if I'm going to come down really hard on it, I might. I don't know. But I will bring you a review and tell you what I thought. I'll give you an in-depth analysis and compare and contrast it to the rest of the Fast and the Furious franchise. I'm vehemently opposed to this movie until Han receives justice, but that's how it goes. So everyone, I just think that oh, somebody sent me a super chat, and if you do that, Dan V900 asks, have you seen Prospect? It's a great sci-fi movie starring Pedro Pascal, the Mandalorian himself, and the cinematography is fantastic. Sophie Thatcher is also a great lead. So for those of you who don't know, and somebody asked me this in the comments, there is a channel on YouTube called Dust, and they are buying short science fiction films, and hoping to develop them as further IP. Their first feature they made, their feature film, is called Prospect, and I have seen it. It's a great little science fiction film. I highly recommend it. It shows that pretty great, thoughtful sci-fi can be done on a budget, and it's great. I really like the Dust channel. There's a pretty good little short. I think I've watched it like 3 times for whatever reason, called FTL, for Faster Than Light. You got to check that out. I mean, the shorts are short. Some of them are better than others. I'd love to see Skyfighter wind up as a short on Dust, hopefully. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Dust. I'm a big fan of Prospect. I can't wait to see them make. I mean, they're going to be making hopefully great sci-fi B movies, like that have a legacy like the Terminator. Because wouldn't that be what we all want to see? I certainly know it's what I would want to see. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Prospect, big fan of Dust. I suggest everyone watch it. But anyway, I'm going to bring this chat to a close. I've said everything I need to say, except remember, every person you know, or every person, what am I saying? Every person you meet, people that you don't know, every person that you meet that you don't know, has a story to tell you have yet to hear. And all you have to do is listen. And with that, I bid you all a farewell. Thanks for listening to this. This might be the most self-indulgent episode of Robservations ever, but that's okay. Sometimes I'm going to be self-indulgent because it's my show, and if I want to be self-indulgent, I can be. So I want to thank you for listening to me and putting up with my self-indulgence. I hope you enjoyed it. Anyway, please answer my question. What are your favorite B movies? Maybe we should program the Robservations B-Movie Film Festival. I'll weed through all of your suggestions, and I will publish a top 25 list of the great B movies everybody needs to see. All genres. I think it'd be kind of cool. Anyway, I will bid you all farewell, and I hope that you all have a better day. I'll see you tomorrow.